Yeah. All right. Well, I want to welcome you to Igniting Souls Global Stream today. I am so excited that you are here because today is going to be an absolute treat. I had the opportunity of talking to our author yesterday, and let me just say, she is full of wisdom. I could talk to you for hours, Melanie. So let me first introduce you to our author today and who we are celebrating their book launch of of their book Resurrected Roadkill. So I'm excited. I like to say resurrection. Can you tell? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Melanie. She is an Amazon best-selling author under a different name. She's a multi-award winning singer, songwriter, and composer, a creator of Sonic Immersion, a sound and word-based tool for resetting a stressed out or post-traumatic mind, and the Audio Chronicles. She has taught and spoken nationally and internationally, and she has coaching certifications from both Tony Robbins, Madness, right?
Madonna's.
And John C. Maxwell. So, and Melanie loves painting, gardens, lingering dinner parties with friends. Girl, we could hang out.
We could certainly hang out.
So much. And welcome. And let me just be one of the first to congratulate you on your book launch that you have today on Resurrected Roadkill. And I love the subtitle, Triumph Over Tragedy and Awakening from the Unlived Life. Whew, that hit me because I see too many people not living their full life. But I have got to ask you just straight up, let's just set this up because I know a lot of people are wondering, what is the background for your, what you call a teaching memoir?
Okay, we'll go there in just a second. But first, I just want to say thank you so much. And it's been a delight just even pre-show getting to know you. And thank you for having me. So yeah, the background on the story is that I was, plugging my way through life like we all do. And I realized when I had a 24-year marriage that was just in the ditch, and really it had been in the ditch for about 24 years, that I had a life pattern that I needed to face. And so it was what I call a wow, I didn't know that was there moment. And what I first did was I went to Codependence Anonymous, but I found that I wasn't a fit there. And someone who was very, very full of wisdom and had been there many years and was more in a service capacity than a recovery capacity of her own, said, there's this book by Patrick Carnes and it's about trauma bonding. And I thought, what the heck is that? And read that book, and then everything started to make sense. And if you know what a trauma bond is, basically the definition is where two people are together and both of them have unprocessed or unhealed trauma, and they're acting out their trauma scenarios with and on each other. And that is a trauma bond. And the power of the bond is the unhealed trauma. And so the way out of a trauma bond is that you have to retrace your steps and go back to the trauma origin. And that is the point when I started writing the book.
And where, okay, so let me just say this. I have seen so many people that they're like, I think I'll write a book. And in the midst of the book, suddenly they realize there's some undealt with trauma. And I think that's what happened. And you birthed this resurrected roadkill out of that, which I've got to ask you about this title, because this title is just like, this is a great title. But how did you come up with the title Resurrected Roadkill?
Well, it really, life gave it to me. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I'm a researcher. Like, no matter what I'm going through, I'm going to research it. And I just like that. And what I found, I was reading Bissell van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, #1 traumatologist in the world, most likely. He had a checklist, and that checklist was for adult survivors of unhealed childhood trauma. And then there was another checklist that I became familiar with, which was the ACE study, ACE, adverse childhood environment. No, I'm sorry. I can't remember the E. But anyway, the ACE study had another checklist. And their checklist was more for pediatricians to assess in a child's life if there was trauma going on right then, if they were under a phenomenal amount of stress, that the pediatricians will look through the ACE framework. Adverse childhood events. There it is. And so I was reading all this material and how childhood trauma, when it's unhealed, affects adults across the lifetime, creates a list of diseases. And every time I read a list, I was maybe missing one or missing zero, or I had a few more that I wished were on the list because I knew they belonged there too. And so I was talking, at the time I was in talk therapy, and I said to my therapist, I said, so we're processing, in my life, it was an infant trauma, and the infant trauma where everyone was just plain heroic. Nobody was evil. They were trying to save my life. But it involved hourly lancing of wounds. And so by the time I was over the illness, I did not want to be touched, handled, nothing like that. And so it set up a bunch of things in motion in my family where I was the bad child. If they had the diagnosis at the time, I would have been diagnosed as defiant. And I mean, I was like that kicking, screaming, biting problem child. So, so all those things go into motion. Back to the conversation with my therapist, I said, so you're telling me that I've got this mindset or this imprint or this schema or this core belief that says I'm bad, I'm horrible, I'm lovable, nobody wants me, it would be better if I wasn't here. And best we can do is we're going to manage it. Like, please don't tell me yes. And she said, well, yeah, that's we're going to manage it. And I thought, I'm roadkill. I'm just roadkill. And obviously that's a pretty hopeless place. If you feel like you're looking back on your life and you're going, oh, I didn't even know I was a splat on the street. But there's a verse in Romans 8:11 that says, if the Spirit who raised Christ from the dead is living in you. And that became my lifeline to hope, because it says it will raise you, right? And I realized as I read it and reread it, that is a resident living power available today, available now. And it is recreative. And that's why I'm a resurrected roadkill.
I love that story. Your story is it's impactful, because how many people don't recognize that and they've been told, just like you were told, look, you're going to have to live with this the rest of your life. And there is a lifeline. There is a lifeline to resurrected power that we've been given. And that comes obviously through salvation. But I just, I want people who are watching to recognize that you're not hopeless. There is hope. And this book, as you know, your memoir, it's the fact that you recognize that it was a childhood trauma that was leading to all this bad child. How many of us are children that we're thinking they're just a bad child? There was a trauma that we need to look at, and they need healing there. And so I think this is something, it's on the cusp of what people are starting to awaken to, that maybe we're not bad. We have some traumas that are undealt with. So your book, I mean, I love the fact that you went there, and the fact that you say we are creative. What was the word you say? You said creative life that's been unlived. So we're created in the image of God. So he's a creator. So we can create a new pathway. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, we can. There's so much reason for hope. And
Yeah.
for me, the unlived life, and let's just go there for a second. For me, the unlived life is it in the book, I mean, there is just a constellation, like a massive system of little micro decisions or micro impressions. And the global impact was just, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm not supposed to be here. Nobody wants to hear me. You know, that's the global impact, but they had to be unraveled one lie at a time.
Yeah.
And so in terms of having hope, there's all kinds of reason for hope. But I'm reminded right now, when Jesus said the truth will set you free, that's where the hope lies, is facing the business of dealing with what's in you.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. I'm excited to read your book. It just has so much. But you talk about you tried many things. So
I
you
did.
tried many things when you were told there was no hope. You're looking at, okay, I'm roadkill. But what tools? I mean, what can you say to individuals watching right now? What tools helped you the most?
Okay. All right. And you know what?
Yeah.
This first one, I really want to explain well, because there's a lot of misunderstanding around it.
Mhm.
It's called the Christian imagination, but let's define that. Um, the secular world says that imagination is a human capacity for making things up. And we tend to say, isn't it great that it's so strong in childhood? And what a shame it goes away as we get older. That's kind of the modern or mainstream thinking on imagination. But the Christian imagination is completely different. It says that God gave every human being an imaging capacity, a capacity for processing things that are right in front of us as for what they are, but also at the same time symbolically.
Mm.
And that means our imagination is a two-way, it's a gateway for two-way communication between our souls and God.
Mm.
So what you'll have when somebody is indoctrinated into the secular understanding is they will hear something from God, and then they will talk themselves right out of it. They'll say, oh, I made that up, because that's what they're trained to believe their imagination has done. Their
Yeah.
brain made that up, and they talk themselves right out of intimacy with God.
Mm.
So yeah, there's believe me, we could talk a long time about this. And
Yeah.
it's not my idea. I got exposed to it through the work of Leanne Payne, who got really into it from C.S. Lewis. And of course, C.S. Lewis had this massive heritage of Samuel Taylor Coleridge and all his knowledge of literature and Shakespeare. And there are a lot of people who informed Lewis and Tolkien and all of the Inklings that the imagination is a two-way gateway for communication with God from beyond. And Leanne Payne is the one, I believe anyway, who said, well, why couldn't we use that as a recovery tool then? And so that was my primary tool, if you want to say that. I also relied very heavily on something called, in the world it's called parts therapy, but to me it's just Bible. And I'll
Mhm.
explain what that is. I learned it from Tony Robbins a certain way, but quickly into the lessons, I discovered, well, this is what I do in my Bible time, because it says in the Psalms, God desires truth in the inmost parts, or
Mm.
in the innermost being. God desires truth in those recesses that we don't even always have access to. Remember tying back into when I said, oh, I didn't know that was there. So God wants truth in those places that we don't even know about. And so I used parts therapy the way that I was inspired to, and it's very much Holy Spirit led. And then I created another tool that is combining neuroscience. And neuroscience says the brain is revised or rewritten or rewired by either trauma or deep relaxation. That's why children learn best in a presence of love and acceptance,
Yeah.
because when the brain state is relaxed, it's the most open.
Yeah.
And so I use deep relaxation, a little bit of music, but I'm a composer, so I would not call this a music project by any means. It's all about delivering the word with a little bit of a sound bed underneath it, so that the truth goes in and literally rewires the mind. It's for the renewing of the mind. And I nicknamed it Sonic Tonic, but somebody owned that name and I didn't know it. So now it's called a sonic immersion. Yeah. And those are my primary tools.
Now that I love the sonic immersion, and I'm very interested in that because music carries frequency, and we know that really helps to rewire us in our brains, in our hearts, all those areas. So and that is going to be one of your giveaways, right? The
That's
sonic
exactly right.
immersion. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about that later on, just down the road, but that's exciting. I might try to get it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the reason I chose the one for perseverance and resilience, because frankly, I think every one of us needs that.
Yeah.
And it's just a way to really refuel the mind and renew the mind so we can get up off the floor if that's where we are. Yeah. And keep going, whether you're on the floor or not, just the ability to get going again.
Yeah. And it goes back to Romans about renewing our mind. And I mean, that's key. And I think we have a path of hope that has been given to us. And it's, whether it's been hidden from us or someone just didn't know. But I love that you are actually going in with music. You're causing the child to relax. Something you said to me yesterday as we were speaking, you said you didn't want people to touch you because you had connected it to the trauma in your childhood, but you felt like your life was threatened. Yes. Because that brought pain. So music is, I'm good friends. Obviously I live in Nashville, so I have a lot of musical friends, and they talk about the life-giving force of music. They talk about the frequencies that literally go in and heal our souls. And so this sonic immersion, y'all need to get this. This is good. And she's gonna, Melanie's gonna tell you how to get that, because it's worth, it's worth some money, and she's giving it to you. So
yes. And you know what, if you don't mind, let me just add something. What I absolutely love about music. Now, remember, I would not call this composed music. It's just a bed to facilitate deep relaxation. However, one thing that I think is just fabulous about music, and it's one of the reasons it is so healing when it's used properly. Yeah. And that is, if you think about Revelations chapter 4, there's all kinds of stuff that you and I have not seen unless we're able to see it in our mind's eye. There's a lot of description there going on visually. Never seen anything like it on the earth, right? The throne of God, the sea of glass, all of the swirls of music. Yeah. Right? So music is the thing that God placed in the earth that is straight out of heaven.
It is. And I love the way music heals, and it takes us to places. And when you say imagine, the first one of the tools you had was imagination, the Christian imagination. And the music can transition you to another place. We had talked about it yesterday. We talked about out of communication. We've kind of come out of communication and into transformation. Can you say that again? Because that was really good, what you had, out of the communication age to the transformation. We want transformation.
Yes, absolutely. And our whole conversation today is about renewing the mind, right? Because the secular world was telling me, best we can do is help you manage whatever the programming was that went into you at an early stage of life. And the New Testament says something completely different. It's like your mind can be renewed, should be renewed, can be renewed daily, actually moment by moment by moment. It can be renewed, right? So that is a profoundly different, that's a message of profound hope. And so what I was saying, I believe yesterday, is that my book is a teaching memoir. There is a lot of information in there because I discovered that the landscape of trauma recovery is loaded with politics, There are some economic factors. There are some things that people who are seeking help really need to understand just to be an informed buyer.
Yeah.
But it also, there's information about recovery, but we're loaded with information. We're overloaded. There's too much information. All of us probably in our homes somehow, sorry, my headphones are sliding, but some of us have in our homes like more volumes than one human being could read if they had, 10 lifetimes, right? We've got information. What we need for today is transformation.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm talking about, the power to literally rewire and rewrite the mind. Then the Bible is all about that. It just didn't put it in modern terms. That is the renewing of the mind.
Renewing of the mind. And I can say that it is in this book. It's teaching. Your teaching memoir is teaching transformation, not just another information overload. It is transformation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to know, and I know a lot of our viewers are wanting to know a little bit about you. Besides being an author, what are, you are loaded with wisdom. And that's something I walked
Oh,
away with
thank you.
after speaking to you. So what are some of your other areas of expertise? Because you have a lot to offer this world.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I didn't get on the planet yesterday, and that's part of why I have done a lot of things. I am a producing artist, and in terms of how I spend my time, I work as an artist. That is where a lot of my time goes, and I know that. I don't know how many artists are out there, but sometimes we struggle with how much time it takes to bring forth a product, and I struggle with that too. But the truth about me is that I am such an artist. If I get too far away from like the music that I compose, or I'm singer-songwriter still to this day, I have more books in me. If I get too far away from that, frankly, I'm cranky. So, so that's one of the things that I'm doing. Also, you mentioned before that I'm certified by Tony Robbins, the Robbins Madonna certification, and John Maxwell. And those are two sides of a coin. Tony Robbins training is very interventionist, and John Maxwell is more of a democratic style of coaching and leading and training. And so I'm trained in both. When I teach my courses, I'm definitely using those coaching skills, and I have coaches that I have courses that I've created. And I want to say I'm not a therapist. I'm not trying to replace that service. My feeling about therapy is I was very helped by therapy, but there was a point where it just fell short, and that is because I was a believer and I had the Lord that I could access, and nobody's going to do better than that. I also work and have spent, literally over 30 years just studying the Christian imagination. And then the last thing that I'm working on, which is close to my heart, but the least formed, is that I'm forming an artist collective of artists who are pursuing the call in their lives, and their whole commitment is to get through whatever they have to get through that's in them, blocking them, so that they bring forth their authentic life's work. And so that's a little bit about me, and it's almost entirely driven by the fact that I believe that artists and kingdom art can bring light to an age that is literally starved for meaning.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but after the Black Plague, and think about, we just had something like that, the Renaissance was born. So we're in for some great days ahead.
We are. Well, yes, I love when I hear, I just kind of sit up in my chair whenever I hear someone say, our best days are in front of us.
I believe it.
Yes,
I believe it.
so do I.
Well, let me ask you this, because we do talk a lot about Christianity, but do you have to be a Christian to benefit from your book or your materials?
Thank you for that question. And the answer is no, absolutely not. I've spent a lot of times in the 12-step rooms, and this kind of undoes me when I think about it. I mean, I love the 12-step rooms. I love how courageous people are there. It is a beautiful, beautiful environment. But all that any 12-step program asks for is to acknowledge that our lives are unmanageable, and to acknowledge that there is a higher power that is more equipped than we are in ourselves to help us. And so if somebody has, I like to say, like the itty bittiest, teeny tiniest, maybe kind of sort of a little bit of faith. In other words, tiny as a mustard seed. If they just have any ability at all to say, and this was my starting prayer as a believer. And my starting prayer was, I was down on my knees, just filling up one tissue after another. And I said, God, if you are real, I want to know you. If you are real, I do want to know you. And that little speck of faith was answered. And I've seen God answer people with faith that I thought, oh, good Lord. But he was right there. So the only thing that I think is necessary is that ability to say, there just might be someone beyond me. And if you can have faith that you're connecting with higher power or God, the Lord Jesus, you are hooked up for life.
Amen. That's good. You're preaching now. That's good.
I guess I am. Yeah.
That's good.
If you don't mind, I do want to add something. When I'm an unapologetic Christian, because there are things that I think, there are concepts that are just New Testament and they're better than something else. That's why I'm a believer. But I'm completely open-armed to wherever people are in their journey.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, because they need that. They need that. But I know we're coming down to the wire.
Yes, we are.
Yes. But why, I know this feels redundant, but why do you feel that people need your book? Who needs your book?
Oh, okay. So I finished the book. That was a hard thing. I used my perseverance sonic immersion for it. I wrote it for two kinds of people primarily. One is trauma sufferers who have not found recovery. They need to know the lay of the land. They need to know there's hope. They need to know you can do better than just manage it. The other population that I was thinking of very much, because in the later chapters of my book, I was emerging as an artist. I was reclaiming my life first from a lot of trauma, but then I was reclaiming purpose and destiny. So I wrote it for those artists that I mentioned in the Arts Collective. Anyone who is afraid of dying with their songs unsung, I wrote the book for you.
Oh, that's good. That is good. And will you tell the listeners, you have a thank you gift for those who are listening.
Yep.
And can you tell them how they can get it now? Now, first of all, before we go there, where can people get your book?
Oh, the book is at any bookseller, or it's available on Amazon. Just search Resurrected Roadkill. There's a trailer if they want to see it, and it links to the Amazon link, resurrectedroadkill.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it went live today on KDP.
Yes.
So
this is the birthday.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Cheers. Cheers. Got my water here. Cheers. That is awesome. So now I want you to tell them how they can get the thank you gift that you are.
Yes. Yes. Just as a thank you for coming, I really appreciate anybody and everybody who's here. I'm giving away the sonic immersion for perseverance. I just need you to write to me at info@melaniegoodwinstudios.com. info@melaniegoodwinstudios.com. And just, if you want to, say in the headline, and this will tell my team what you're asking for, I want to bring forth my life's work. And if you just put that in the headline, we'll know exactly what you're asking for. You can say hi or anything else you want to say, but that will clue us into what your email is about. And then we'll say, oh, and by the way, it's getting mastered, so it won't happen immediately. It's not digitally ready to send right away. It's coming out in about 3 or 4 days.
And this is your sonic immersion. So you all, this is the music that it helps you heal, and really does what what we're here to do, really, to help heal others, to
Amen.
help others. And I love what you're doing. I
Thank you.
cannot wait to meet you in person. And I
I
hope that
can't wait
day
to meet
happens.
you. Thank you
And
so much.
the biggest congratulations on your book.
Thank
So
you.
you all go out and get Resurrected Roadkill, because, and I've got to say the subtitle again because I love the subtitle: Triumph
Cool.
over Tragedy and Awakening from the Unlived Life. Don't let your life go unlived. Get the healing
Whew.
you need and live your life that God put you on this earth to live, and be dynamic in doing it. So it has been a pleasure. You are a treat, Melanie. So
Thanks so much.
congratulations, and
Yes.
I am
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing how well your book does.
Thanks again.
Thank you.